the Lord has a pretty funny way of doing stuff, right? Sometimes you've got to get uncomfortable, and I don't know why, to be fair. I haven't studied it enough. I probably should understand that more, but sometimes you got to get uncomfortable all of a sudden. And that's what happened to them. They got really uncomfortable, and he says all the time that he had his faith in the wrong place. And after that, he put his faith in one, and that was the Lord. And he said, he's the one, he's the only one that can actually control, or the only one that I should have my faith and trust in. It doesn't make any sense to have it anywhere else.
This is Faith Family Cars Podcast. I'm Jerry.
I'm Zach.
Hit the key. So, Jacob, you are very close to your family. I can tell just talking off the air, you're very close to your parents, but you have a wife and a young son, and you're very family oriented.
Yes, to say the least. Yeah. People probably think we're crazy, to be honest. I mean, I see Dad basically every day. Me and him, unless I'm traveling for work, I'm probably in the evenings here in the shop with him doing something. And so, and when I don't see him, I talk to him like on the phone 2 or 3 times a day. And that's been that way for years. When I was in college, I talked to him like 2 or 3 times a day. I'd leave class, never pick up the phone. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? And see what he was working on in the shop or whatever. And people would think we were crazy because they would talk to their dads like once a week, once every other week or whatever. And then I'm talking to him 2 or 3 times a day. So people think. Yeah.
Well, as a parent, I don't think it's crazy because
we can relate to that
because I talk every day.
I text you at least 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah.
Just asking about whatever random, whatever pops into my head. Hey, you think this will work on the car? Yeah. What's going on in the shop right now, or where are you traveling to for work? Anything,
just whatever
pops in my head. Text him.
Me and are we instigate each other. We send each other marketplace listings constantly. It's back and forth. And Mom's like, "Would you please stop sending him stuff?"
So we're a very close family, and all 3 of my sons. I talk to them every day. Of course, I've got one still living at home, but the 2 that are gone, we talk every day, at least by text. And, even my son that's in the military, he's at least sending something to say, hey, what's going on today? How are y'all doing today? Or vice versa. I'm sending something to him, so we hear from each other every day, no matter what. And I think that it's a great thing. You got to stay in. As a parent, you got to stay in tune with your kids' lives, and you need to know what's going on with them. And you need to be, even as adults, you need to be there for them, and you need to make sure they're okay. So, and I just said all that to say that I know that your story comes from your family growing up and your family background. And I know you love your family a lot. So why don't you get in and talk a little bit about your testimony and your story.
Yeah, so I would love to do that. So I was telling you guys before we started talking that I have a little bit of a kind of a blip about this a little bit on a video that we have coming up on the channel. But I'm really actually glad it's going to work out where it's going to end up here first, because it fits here even way better. And so I was telling you guys beforehand, so in Shift Points itself as a YouTube channel is only about 2 years old, just over 2 years. Yep. And but before there was ever Shift Points or there was ever anything like that, there was Freeman Hot Rod Repair. And that is the shop here that we work in. So in 2003, Dad and Mom were working at a plant in Mars Hill, North Carolina. It was called Microswitch. They both worked there. Dad worked in maintenance, worked on the machines and stuff like that. Mom worked on the lines. Middle of the year, 2003, they came in and announced that they no longer had a job. That plant was going to be moved to Mexico, thanks NAFTA. So that was during those years. There was a lot of that going on. And so we became a part of that. So in 2003, I would have been about 9 years old. Yeah, 8, 9 years old, going into 9. And so as an 8, 9 year old, you don't you don't understand the gravity of that situation. I have no idea. So I have an older sister. She's about 7.5 years older than me. And so she was just getting ready to go to college. And this was one thing that mom and dad always really wanted to do, was to be able to put her and me through college. And they did it with both of us through engineering school at UNC Charlotte. And so, but again, you think about this, you have a 15, 16-year-old daughter who's about to get ready to go to college. You have a 9-year-old son, and all of a sudden you have someone tell you that you no longer have a job that you've had for 25 years.
Yeah.
And so again, I have to know now, based off of conversations that I've had with Dad, and I have to make sure I get this right, because he's sitting here just off camera listening to me. He walked in. So so it's a little bit harder to tell the story, I think, with him here. But anyway, so I didn't know this at the time. I just had no idea the gravity of the situation. You know what I mean? So they don't know what they're going to do for a living. You know what I mean? Like, flat out, we've done this. And I say all that to say is, Dad says all the time that he had his eggs in a basket of men and of people and of things and of a job, and that's what he had his faith in, was that. And not intentionally, not on purpose, but it just happened that way. He felt secure. I've had this job for this long, everything's going to be okay. Everything's fine. Well, then the Lord has a pretty funny way of doing stuff, right? Sometimes you've got to get uncomfortable, and I don't know why. To be fair, I haven't studied it enough. I probably should understand that more, but sometimes you got to get uncomfortable all of a sudden, and that's what happened to them. They got really uncomfortable, and he says all the time that he had his faith in the wrong place, and after that, he put his faith in one, and that was the Lord. And he said, he's the one, he's the only one that can actually control, or the only one that I should have my faith and trust in. It doesn't make any sense to have it anywhere else. And that came, of course, he didn't come to that conclusion immediately. I mean, it was a hard time. This took some years, but when you look back on it now, and again, I didn't realize this as a kid, but you look back on it now, things were tight around here, man. I mean, but at the same time, I had no clue. They still worked really hard to give me whatever I wanted. And again, as an 8-9-year-old, you want stupid video games or, whatever. And you have no idea that this situation's going on. And they worked really hard to make it in a way that we didn't realize what the situation was. They worked really hard for that. And so anyway, Dad makes the decision, or him and Mom together make the decision that, I've worked in the shop for a long time. I have this shop. I could go back to school and do something, or I've been doing jobs. I've been working on cars and things like that. Why don't I just, basically leap of faith, and I'm going to dive in and start working in the shop full time. And so he added 20 feet onto the shop. This is where the podcast studio is, where we work out of here. That was the addition that was added to the shop after that. So they built onto the shop, and he went in here full time and started working on some really trick stuff. I mean, he really did a lot of really cool work. There's a truck. If you guys check out our YouTube video about Power Tour from 2023. We went on a Power Tour with a guy named Brian Ramsey, and he has a second series 55 Chevrolet truck. It's a Cameo truck. Nice. And it is one of the nicest, and Brian would argue with me about this. It is by far one of the nicest trucks in the entire country. And I don't think there's many people that once they saw that truck that would try and argue with me about that. It is one of the nicest builds, period. It's got an LS in it. It's a Magnuson supercharger on it. It has just an absolutely killer paint job. I mean, and this truck was built in 2004, 2005. So like it was kind of ahead of its time for what it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dad did a ton of work on that truck. I mean, a ton of it. I mean, we love to tell the story. They bought this Cameo bed. So the bed was off of a 57 truck, I think, maybe. Is that right?
The truck was a 57. I don't remember what year
Gotcha. So the truck itself was actually a 57, and they made some changes to it to make it into a 55. But anyway, they go find this bed, and you guys know about the Cameo beds. The shell of the Cameo beds are fiberglass.
Uh-huh.
Well, they picked this bed up, and it is it's already got a really killer slick paint job on it. The guy they pick it up from, he is like proud of this. This is a prized possession of his, is this Cameo bed, right? But he sells it. They can work up a deal. And on the way home, Dad tells Brian, hey, just so you know, the wheels and tires that you've got picked out for this thing are not going to fit under this bed. And he was like, what do you mean? He's like, it'll fit. And they bring it home and they set it on it. And he said the bed set on the wheels and tires. I said, I told you. So the next day, Dad basically pulls out a Ziz wheel and he's cutting tubs in this Cameo bed that is his prized possession. And he tubs it. And man, and like I said, it is literally one of the nicest trucks in the country right now. And so I'd say all of that. And there was other projects that were just as honestly kind of as big that came through the shop here and stuff like that. But he realized that if you just take a minute, step back, even though your world might seem completely shattered and absolutely a wreck at that moment, there's for some reason that happened. And I look at it now, and sorry, I kind of cheered up a little. I look at it now and think about if that hadn't happened, where we would be right now. There probably would have never been a Shift Points. There probably would have never been this YouTube channel or any of that stuff. And sorry. Yeah, it's been kind of a long week, guys.
It's all good. Man. This is great.
So he's had to him and Mom worked really hard to continue to work and to put their faith in the right places, being the Lord. And that put us in this situation where literally me and him get to work together every day, and we get to do what we really love. And the other day I'd said something to him or made some sort of comment about being frustrated about something that we were having to do instead of what we needed to do and stuff like that. And he said, don't worry about that. Like, I'm having fun. Like, and we're having fun with this. Like, don't get frustrated about something little or something minor. Like, think back to what all we've worked on and what we've done up to this point, to get there, to this point. So don't get hung up on the little things sometimes. And I'm bad about that. Being in this situation and doing YouTube and doing the stuff that we do, there's such a big audience of people, or there's so many people kind of doing similar things that you're doing, and you see someone be successful, or you see someone land a big sponsorship, and it's not jealousy, but there's this want to, like, I would love to one day be able to not work my corporate job that I work right now, and we being here doing stuff that we want to do. And so my want to get to that point clouds my mind sometimes. And I have to think back to the things that we've accomplished. I mean, you think about it, while there was a ton of work done on that 55 truck when we started on it, it still took us a solid 6 months to get that truck ready to go for Power Tour. We put so many hours into that truck after the fact. So that's a big build, and it's kind of a staple that we kind of go back to. It's kind of turning into that thing on the channel that we just automatically fall back into. You were talking about taking your car on the drag strip and on the autocross and stuff like. I would love to do that same thing with that truck. I just want it to be kind of like this workhorse can do, kind of want to do everything with it. Yeah. And so we did that. Then we did all that work on my Galaxy. We've worked on his 64 Fairlane that he has. We've worked on my truck, done a bunch of improvements. So like they always say, don't miss the forest, or don't miss the trees by looking at the forest, or something like that. Right. Well, that's how I'm bad to do that sometimes. I sometimes forget all the stuff that we've done and the fun that we've had. And because I'm just trying to get to that next thing, and that's stupid. I mean, honestly, just to say it flatly, that's pretty dumb of me, and I shouldn't do that. So I appreciate, that I've never told that story. I've never told it to anybody in the YouTube world. There's a lot of people that know about it around here, but out here on the interwebs, I've never told that story. And yeah, to be honest, I didn't expect it to kind of hit me that hard. But thinking about it here in this situation, and kind of if that had never happened, they would have probably still been working maintenance or something up there now. You know, I mean, and we would have still just been kind of a little shop, if you will. And man, there's just been some really cool and a lot of hard work done in this shop by him, by Mom, by me. You know, now in the past few years, you know, we've just done a lot of cool stuff. And if that hadn't have happened, it probably wouldn't have happened. And so that's why it's really important to have your faith in the right place, and maybe that's why it hit me a little bit hard today. Maybe I've had my faith in a little bit of the wrong place the past couple weeks, and so I'm extremely grateful for this conversation tonight. To be honest with you,
that's what this podcast is all about. You know, from day one, we wanted guys to be able to tell their story, and just like you saying, this is the first time you've been able to tell that story. We've had multiple guys tell us after the podcast was over, that's the first time I've said that. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the first time I felt comfortable talking about that. You know, and so God works in mysterious ways, and we never know why things happen to put us into the places that we are. And I don't know why we are doing this podcast. I really don't. Except for the fact that I felt led by God, Zach felt led by God, that we move forward with it. So a car community can hear each other's stories. And one thing I noticed about being around cars for years now, and basically just going to car shows and cruise ins and to the drag strip from time to time, was that there's not a lot of God in the car community, you know.
True.
At the surface.
Yeah, there it is. There, that's what I just started saying. Yeah, exactly.
At the surface. When you dig in deeper, you find out there is a whole community of guys who love the Lord, and who just haven't had that platform to be able to tell others, you know, about Jesus. So that's what we're hoping we're doing here.
When you told me at PRI what you guys were doing, you said, well, we just felt the Lord told us that's what we needed to do. And I looked at it and said, well, it's a good thing you're doing it, you know, because when you fight that, I mean, there's so many stories in the Bible about that, right? Of somebody going out of their way, to avoid something that they're being told to do, and it doesn't get better. You know what I mean? That you don't usually get out of it.
Well, Jonah's probably the first one that comes to my mind.
There it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then if you remember at the end of that story, the thing that I love about the story of Jonah that I think sometimes gets overlooked is, you know, he spends the 3 days in the belly of the fish, and he's told to go tell this city to repent. But when he goes and tells them to repent, he doesn't come up with some this isn't not some grand preaching that he does. He doesn't show up and put on a show he basically walks in the gates and says, you better get straighter. In 3 days, this place is coming down. And that's all. And that's basically what he said. You know what I mean? I mean, a very paraphrase for hillbilly. That's what, and he walks out and he kicks the dust off his feet, man. And he's done with it. He does. It's fine. But and that one little phrase, you know, that little bit of preaching completely changes that city, you know. So that's what I love about it, is even then he kind of still had his arms tucked and, you know, his lip out. He
did not want to go do that. You know, they were his enemy, and he did not want to go do that.
Exactly.
And, you know, sometimes I think that we have in our own minds that we don't want to do something so bad that we don't realize that all through history and all through the Bible, God uses the weakest. He uses the one that may not speak the best. He uses the one who may not be the smartest, and he takes those people and uses them for something great. And that's so many times I think that we don't do what God tells us to do because we don't feel like we're adequate to do that. And you can tell, and I've said this many times on the podcast, I'm not a very good speaker, and I'm not real good talking with people, but this is where God put me. So I'm trying to make the best of it. So.
No, I appreciate it. There's a singer songwriter that I listen to. His name's Adam Carroll. He's a Texas guy. It's by no means is he I would call him a Christian artist, but he has a line in one of his songs that he says the saints shared the flames with the thieves and the liars.
Yeah,
they weren't hanging out with the good people. They went and found the guys that really needed something, and that's the guys that usually get the most done aren't the ones who are talking the most. They're the ones that are down getting it done. And
that's exactly right.
Well, if you just look at Jesus' disciples, that's exactly what they were. They weren't the people you'd expect to be the follower of the greatest man to ever walk this earth.
Yeah, that's it. It just makes me think about Eddie saying in the Bible Talk episode last time that he could just picture that flatbed Chevy with Peter driving it and a whole bunch of drunk sailors on the back of it.
Exactly.
Because that's where he came from. They were fishermen. They like to have a good time together, and that's the kind of people that Jesus seeks after to use. He seeks after just us normal people to go out and spread the gospel and to bring more people to him, because we all want to see Jesus one day. And that's what it's all about. We need to share the gospel so others can see Jesus too. So I think it's awesome that God brought you all through such a difficult time to be where you are now. And now you can bring your son up in that same atmosphere.
Yep.
And knowing Jesus and being able to have a passion for cars.
Right. Yeah. We work really hard. We laugh. So Emily will say sometimes, or I'll say, I don't know what we did, but whatever we did, we've got a good one, But it wasn't us. At the end of the day, it hadn't been us, we have little inputs and stuff like that, but we've just been really blessed with Riley. He's a dandy little boy that we have a ton of fun with. And like I told you guys before we started here, no one around here will believe me that I didn't force cars on him or try and I really didn't. That's a genuine truth. We would watch stuff in the background and stuff like that. But he has really immediately gravitated to it.
Yeah.
He loves his cars.
That's awesome. So
that's what I hope for my kid one day.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I always wanted. I mean, when my kids, every one of them by their 1-year-old birthday, they were getting a Power Wheels, even though they couldn't even drive it yet. They all got one. So we started very young, and then they moved into go-karts and different stuff, and so I think that for me, I wanted to get them in early. My dad didn't really, we didn't really do anything with cars, but I always loved cars. I moved from Hot Wheels to model cars to having my own, and finally I got to the point where I could have my own projects, and that was. And then that's where I'm at now, and it's just it's a blessing to be able to do those things. And just like your all shop is a blessing. And
it is.
It's awesome to be able to look back and see what God has done.
Yep, exactly, 100%. And I think back to it. You were talking about you got started late. I didn't get started late, but I fought it. Every teenage boy fights their dad at some point. Maybe not physically. Some of them probably physically fight, but that's not what I'm talking about. But as far as personality wise, and it turns out that it's because me and him are so dang similar, right? I mean, we're just so similar that if he said this, he knew. He's like, if you'll get out here and help me, or if you'll go with me to this, you're gonna love it. No, I'm not going to. And it's just because his daddy, right? You know what I mean? And so, and I asked him the other day, and again, I see him every day, talk to him every day, most see him almost every day. Then I told him, I said, when I was about 13, 14 years old, if someone told you that me and you would work together almost every day, what would you have said? And he said, no. He said, just because we just butted heads so often, and so and that's why, to be honest, I wish that I had started all of this stuff sooner, just because there's just so many talking about that truck or talking about the other cars that have come through this shop. I wish so badly that I could have videoed that, because there's just some really incredible work that was done and that he figured out. It's just a lot of it's one-off stuff of his brain, And so I would have loved to have been able to get that on video, but again, things happen at a time when they're supposed to, and I think there was a reason that I was supposed to start it when I did. And when we started the channel, I told him, I said, I walked in the shop one day and I said, "Hey, I ordered some cameras and we're going to start making YouTube videos." And he was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He don't like being in front of the camera. Even now, 2 years later, he don't love it, but he does love what we're doing. And so he appeases me. He'll get in front of the camera sometimes and stuff, but he had a lot of questions, but I basically didn't give him an option. I said, "All right, I've thought about this for like 5 years now. It's time to let it eat,
Yeah.
and so that's what we've done.
You're talking about being so much like your dad that you butt heads. So my youngest, I think that's one of the reasons why we butt heads so much is because him and I are very similar in our thought process on stuff.
Yeah.
So now Zach's got a lot of his mother in him, and he can calm situations down a little better than I can. I'll get a little hot sometimes. So and that's where me and his brother butt heads. So.
I get it. I get it. And he was the same way at that time. And again, if you think back to the situation they're in,
yes,
every reason to get hot headed at times. You know what I mean? Especially some jerk little kid over here jerking him around.
Yeah.
He had every reason to. But the good thing, and if there's a little bit that I can give you with that, is that I think because we're so similar now, but we just difference in people, we work so well together now. When we're working and when we're in a situation, I in general know what he's thinking, or if we need to get tools or something like that, I'm usually ahead of him. I know what is coming next. I need to grab him something or whatever we're working on. And in the past year or so, it feels a lot more where we've gotten into situations where it is, we start looking at something and like I say, we have an idea and we kind of like brainstorm, bounce stuff back and forth of each other. And then we land on a final, oh yeah, okay, that's the way to do it. And I don't think either one of us would ever get to that same conclusion if we didn't have the other one going back and forth on that stuff. And so he's, like I said, he's listening. He's not going to be able to get out of the shop because his head's going to be so big, but I don't think that we would have ever gotten here if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, so I think that Zach and I are at that point now.
Yeah.
So early on, we butted heads quite a bit, but now he runs ideas by me, and I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. I run ideas by him, and we work together pretty good.
It's at the point where, like, sometimes I don't even have to, I mentioned I text him a lot. But sometimes I don't even have to text him because I'm like, I know exactly what he's going to say. There's no reason to even ask the question.
It's funny, and to give just one other example, we ran over to a swap meet the other day. I don't know if you guys know Colin with the Daily Misfire, but he
I've seen his stuff.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so Colin, he lives over in Irwin, just about 30 minutes from here, and me and him have become pretty good friends. And we were at a car show the other day, and he was arguing with me. I have this obsession with square body Suburbans, and I love them, and I want one so bad. I'm trying to talk my wife into one, and I hadn't got there yet. But I want one with bread truck doors. And I love bread truck doors on the Suburban. Well, Colin tries to argue with me that a tailgate is better. And he's never been more wrong about something in his.
Well, I'm going to say I agree with him.
Really? I like the doors. I like the doors.
You got to have the doors, man. You can't.
I like the tailgate.
Tailgates are heavy. The glass doesn't work. You can't roll it up. Anyway. But anyway.
It don't have that split down the middle. That's the cool
part. That's the cool part.
Exactly. Thank you.
Crawl up inside there. There used to be a guy in town. I don't guess he has it anymore. It used to be out all the time. It was Chevy Orange, but he had a square body Suburban that had those doors on it. Yeah. It was nice, man.
And so what was funny about it is he's arguing with me, and I'm giving him all the reasons why the bread truck doors are better than tailgate. And I said, just ask him. And he was walking up. He had not been a part of this conversation. And he asked, what's better, the tailgate or bread truck doors? Oh, bread truck doors, because boom, boom, boom. And he listed in the same order that I did, the exact same list. And I was like,
man. All I know is my brother used to have a Chevy Astro van that had those doors on it. And I drove that van a lot when I first got my license. And I got those doors because you had that split right down the middle of it when you're looking out.
I love it.
Oh man! So we've, I think we've had some good conversation here, Jacob. It's been It's been a good time. So on your Instagram, I'm going to bring up one last topic here. On your Instagram, you do quite a bit of memes.
Yeah.
Right?
And very relatable stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's right.
And you also show the content in your guys' shop. You show content from Southeast Gassers. So you have a lot of different stuff going on. I mean, it's like on a daily basis, I never know what we're going to get from you, because you have so
that's
many
how I
different
like
things.
it.
Yeah. So why don't you shout out your YouTube and your Instagram and wherever else you're at?
Yeah, so we are Shift Points. You see it here on the screen, I think. Shift Points. Yep. That's us on everything. Is on YouTube, Instagram. YouTube is the big one. If you guys don't mind that, if you can go subscribe and follow us along on YouTube on our long form videos and stuff like that, that is a massive asset to us right now. Again, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, a little bit. I mean, I put all the safe stuff on TikTok, but I've just for whatever reason never got good traction there. I don't use it, so I think that's probably part of it.
It's very hit or miss.
Yeah,
it seems to be. So yeah, you can follow us on all of those. Like I said, YouTube is the big one that I'm going to plug. Head over there because all of our short form stuff that's on Instagram usually ends up on YouTube as well. Might have a different song on it or something, but in general, it stays the same. But you're also going to get all of our weekly long form videos. We have put out a video on Friday, except for one Friday for every Friday since January, the first Friday in January of 2023.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so there was 1 week where I didn't put it up on Friday. I put it up on Wednesday for whatever. I can't remember what the reason was, but there was something like that. So, but we've put out at least one version, long form version, or a podcast or something like that every week for over 2 years now. So we hoping not to break that. We just have a brand new one now. If you guys want to listen to me talk a little more, just one that went up. This is. What is it today? January the 31st. Yep. So it's January 31st. We just had one go up this morning. That was one of our preseason build-up podcasts with Randy Edmonds, the race director for Southeast Gassers that I was talking about earlier. Yep. So we're talking about everything getting ready for the season. And I'm not sure if this one will come out before the first race of the season at South Georgia. I think it probably will. You guys were talking about it. That's so. 21st and 22nd. So I booked the hotel this morning, so I'm going to do my best to be there unless something falls apart. So if you guys want to see some awesome, authentic gasser racing, head down to South Georgia and come find me because I'll be running around doing something, taking videos, talking to somebody, looking at race cars, just smiling from ear to ear.
All right. So you said today's January 31st, and I'm just going to shout out my mom and dad's 55th anniversaries today.
Awesome.
So really happy anniversary.
5 years. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Golly.
It's a long time.
So me and my wife are working on 26. So
I'm working on one.
Yeah. So. To think 55, it's a long time.
I'm working on 6. So
hey, you guys got a long ways to go, and you got a lifetime to go together. So just keep up what you're doing. Keep your family first. Right under God. You got to keep God first, and then your family. But
have faith, family, cars.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's the order it's got to go in.
So one other thing that when you were talking about your socials right there, where we can find you all, it reminded me of a podcast that you did very early on of Ship Points. Okay.
Oh, no.
And you mentioned in that podcast, because you were introducing yourself, it was like the first episode.
Okay.
And you were introducing yourself, and you were talking about how you wished you wouldn't have played stupid video games so much. And you would have gotten more out in the shop with your dad. So
Well, you heard the story. Why?
Yes.
If I had some perception on what was going on and what I was missing out on, I wouldn't have been stuck back in my room jockeying around on no video games. I'd have been out here figuring it out because I would have been many years ahead. And Dad always said it. He said, "You're wasting your time on those. You're going to be years behind." And he was right. And I hate to say it, but he was right.
So, guys, just go get that kid and drag him out there with you.
That's right.
Make him get out there with you, and he'll start enjoying it.
Yeah, he'll scream and kick his feet probably a little bit, but it'll be okay. He'll figure it out.
Hey, the way to hook him in is take him out there on the street somewhere and do a nice, nasty burnout. And
there you go.
Be in that garage every time.
That will be a big thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, take him to a race track. Take him to a short track. We talk about this, man. There's local drag strips. There's local track stuff. It don't matter. Go to something because it is. I remember when I fell in love with NASCAR racing. I was probably like 14, 15 before I went to my first race. It was a truck race at Bristol. It was a Wednesday night race. We showed up and I was like, holy cow, like this. And it just completely shifted everything after that, and so just go somewhere, go do something, because there's so many places that you can go now and dip your toe in.
I mean, our local circle track, actually, they used to do school bus racing over there. Yep. I don't know if they still do anymore, but I mean, I don't know how you can go watch that and not fall in love with some form of racing. That's just too much fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, Jacob, you got anything else that you want to share?
Man, I think that's it. I just, like I said a few minutes ago, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I've looked forward to it since you mentioned me coming on at PRI. And like I said, it has been a bit of a long week here for us. But this was a really good way to cap it off, and I think it's a definite high point for me. And I'm just looking forward for this going out. If you guys don't care, whenever it does come out, I'm probably going to kind of use it in place of one of our weekly videos. I'm going to plug it and try and get our guys, everyone that follows us regularly. I'm hoping to get them here to listen to this.
That'd be great. That would be awesome. Yeah. So we appreciate all the kind words, and we appreciate you coming on. Yeah. And it's been a blessing to meet you and to follow along with you. You've been collaborating some stuff with us too from time to time, and we really appreciate that as we try to grow this thing and get the word out. So maybe we'll have you back on in the future, and hopefully,
that'd be awesome. Yeah, hopefully after we go 4 seconds in the 8th, man. I'll have a lot to say when that happens.
Oh yeah.
We'll look forward to doing something with that then, and then. Hopefully we'll get down there at some point to be able to watch some of the Southeast drag racing stuff, and maybe we can meet up doing that sometime.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I think we'd all enjoy that. So
yeah,
all right.
Follow them, and you'll see the schedule, and we'll plan on something. We'll try and hook up. That'd be awesome.
All right, sounds good. Zach, why don't you send us out?
All right, so you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for weekly Bible verses, and we do podcast clips on there. To watch the podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, just type in Faith Family Cars and you'll find it. Like, subscribe, leave us constructive criticism. We're always trying to build this, make it better. Anything that you got that could help improve this, throw it in the comment section, DM us on Instagram, whatever you got. We're all ears for anything like that. Just trying to make this better and get the name of the Lord out any way we can.
And you can also email us at faithfamilycars@gmail.com. That's a new email address that we've set up recently. Now, when this airs, it's old. It's old. But anyway, new email address. If you have questions about your faith, email that to us. If you want to know how to start that relationship with Jesus Christ, just reach out to us, DM us on Instagram, or reach out to us through the email, and we will get back with you. And guys, don't forget to email your questions for Bible Talk and for Tech Talk with Matt Barton. So that's 2 new things that we're starting, and we need those questions so we can have some good conversation, give you guys some good content.
I think the first episode of Bible Talk went pretty good, so just keep the questions coming and we can keep building off of it.
Yeah, and by the time this airs, we will have a new episode of Tech Talk, the first episode of Tech Talk out. So We're looking forward to that too. So guys, we love you all. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.